All right, family, we back up in here again. Sorry, y'all. We gonna do this till we get it right. You know how I do it. I'm patient as can be. I'm gonna do it till I get it right. Um, and so we're gonna try this again. Happy Traditional Tuesday, family. Peace, Jill Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum. Today on Traditional Tuesdays, Way to the Path, we're gonna talk to Darmone, Holland. This sister is incredible. I love it when I get a chance to interview very powerful people because on Traditional Tuesday, Way to the Path, Traditional Tuesday, coined by my homegirl, Danielle, in New York. She talked about on Tuesdays where she is, African Americans in particular, Africans in general, we dress in our traditional garb to work or wherever it is that we're doing. So, and so when she started me with that, I just started saying, oh my God, so every Tuesday I dress like that every day, but it's just nice to have a day dedicated. And then I was like, wow, I would love to learn more about spirituality and African customs. And so I kept the Traditional Tuesday from my homegirl and put Way to the Path so we can learn more about ourselves. And so, peace, dear sister. I did inbox you, dear sis. And so I'm really, really excited about talking with this sister today because we're going to talk a lot about holistic healing and spirituality to heal around trauma or things that are happening in our life that have been traumatic or, just overwhelming. How do we get to that place of healing? How do we do that? Yes. Okay, so the sister I'm gonna get her online and we're gonna get this great discussion going. I'm very excited, and so before I start hitting that invite button to invite people, I want to make sure I got this dear sister on. So I think she is. We're communicating and we're gonna get her on. So this is gonna be Sister Darmone Holland. The sister's incredible. So what I like about her, she's a spiritualist and a naturalist. Peace, sis. I'm trying to get this right up in here. I'm on your page. I don't see it. Refresh. Telling her to refresh your page. Oh, this is getting on my nerves. Okay, hold on. Not this. I'm talking about my clicker on my thing. It moves. It do stuff I don't even tell it to do. So hold on. I'm sorry, y'all. Let me look down for just a minute. And thank y'all for bearing with me. Okay, so here we go. Hold on. There we go. And so what happens is, all right, here we go. Refresh. Okay. Whew, because my pen just I don't use the mouse anymore on my laptop. And so my finger's very sensitive. There you go, there, sis. And this time I actually see you. So let's see. Add you. Sis, I just invited you if you can accept. Be able to jump right on. There you go. I love it.
Yay, finally. Okay, let me get my phone situated. Yay.
Yeah. We're on. I'm so excited. So what I do is that I don't start inviting people till I got the technology right. So people has already started signing on and because we was on earlier.
Okay.
So I first of all, thank you for taking this time to do this interview with me. So this is Traditional Tuesday, Way to the Path. I always want to know what's the way to the path of healing, to spirituality, to yourself. You know what I mean? So, y'all, we are talking with Sister Darmone Holland. She's a priestess of Obatala. She's a Mambo and Voodoo, as well as a naturopathic practitioner of holistic medicine. I love that. Chinese medicine and a master herbalist practitioner. Also, she's a certified life coach specializing in transformational soul coaching. Now, what I love about what you sent me in that blurb was like spiritual. Sometimes people usually go between the either or. Something happened with the sister. I don't know what happened. Come back in, sis. Invite yourself back in. So something must have happened. She must have hit a button or something. But this sister has both. She has both. She has the spirituality piece and she has the medicine piece. And sometimes people usually be on the extreme, but instead of using both, like figure out how do they, how can you use both to have a balance? Let's see what's going on with this sister here. Hold on. Let me ask her. Hold on, family. Hey, Marine, peace. Congratulations, dear sis. Hold on, Here we go. Okay, y'all. So we're going to get this back in. So we're going to be talking with when we get this right, and we're probably really close. We're going to talk with Darmone Holland. She's a priestess of Abatala, a Mumbo and Voodoo. Because I'm going to ask her about all of this stuff. She's a naturopathic practitioner of holistic medicine, Chinese medicine, and a master herbal practitioner. Also certified life coach specializing in transformational soul coaching. So thank you, dear sis. So I'm this topic for me is like I love the mixture of both because usually if you're dealing with some, say you have some medical issues and then people tell you to pray on it, but you don't take your medicine, or you take your medicine but you didn't really deal with the spiritual side of yourself. So I like the fact that she's in two major worlds that we know kind of should go like this. So here she is, y'all. She's back up in here. Let's see. Boom. All right, sis. We getting it in here. We gonna get this in here. So it says adding. And let's see. Okay, let's see. Because we know she can get in here. Let's see what's going on. So we're looking at both. There we go. We're back again.
Okay.
Okay.
My daughter's telling me not to touch anything.
Okay.
I had to get my technical assistant in here.
Oh, that's too funny. So what may happen, say if you get a phone call while we're talking, just immediately cancel, like just cancel the phone call. Then because it'll freeze when your phone rings, and then if you cancel, it goes right back like we'll still be talking. So
Okay.
So
Okay.
I just did an introduction of you again. I was saying one of the things that a good example I gave is like, say if you have like kind of like a health problem, and then people tell you to pray on it, and then you don't take your medicine, or you take your medicine and then you don't really get yourself centered spiritually, like to be able to deal with. I like the fact that you have both. So I wanted to ask you, what made you, first of all, what came first, the spiritual piece of the priest, of being a priestess, or the herbal piece, or were they kind of riding together with you in your journey?
I would say in my journey, what came first was my own personal distress and trauma. And that led me on a path of seeking healing and spirituality. I'm pretty open about the fact that I grew up around extreme violence and trauma and abuse. That was very much a part of my earlier life. I suffered tremendously, from depression, anxiety, and a number of other things. And that sent me on a healing journey to discover both, my African spirituality as well as holistic health. So I would say both happened at the same time, to answer your question concisely.
So when you talked about your growing up and the things that kind of led you to the path, how did you first recognize that you even needed to seek out those things?
I was sick. I would say at about the age of 19, 20, I had migraine headaches. I had polycystic ovarian syndrome. I was in and out of the hospital. I had multiple surgeries. So it wasn't anything subtle. I mean, I was physically ill. I was depressed, and that led me on a path of seeking holistic health. Because when I went to the conventional medical doctors, the things that they were offering to me were quite scary and ineffective, and I didn't want to deal with the side effects. So then I started seeking out holistic health, to find healing from the depression, from the migraine headaches. So my was so debilitating that I couldn't work for days at a time. I would be out of commission. And I went to actually Dr. Kamal Kokai. He's one of my first mentors, so definitely want to give him a shout out. He prescribed my first homeopathic remedy, and I haven't had a migraine since, and that was 30 years ago, over 30 years ago. Wow. So that really sparked my interest in homeopathy. Anything that could work instantly like that. I wanted to know more about it. So I went to school for homeopathy. I studied it formally for 8 years, and then I went on to become a homeopathic practitioner.
Okay, what does those words mean? What is homeopathic? Because a lot of people's like, oh, okay, what is that?
Well, homeopathy was actually the first form of standardized, recognized medicine in this country. So Hahnemann College Medical School was actually a homeopathic medical school. It's in Philadelphia,
Mm-hmm.
named after Samuel Hahnemann. And so homeopathy, all of the first medical schools in the 17 and 1800s were homeopathic medical colleges. And homeopathy is a type of medicine. It's based on the law of similars, like cures like. So anything that would cause a particular disease pattern in toxic doses, you can prepare it in minimal doses. And if a person shows those same symptoms, you can give them the homeopathic dosage to cure the person. And it's very, very effective. It's energy vibration medicine. And I think that's a very different concept for a lot of people to understand, because we're used to the understanding of allopathic medicine, that you have to give something biochemically to cause a biochemical effect in someone's body. But energy vibrational medicine is something that I think we need to delve into. So that brings us to acupuncture, which is based on energy and restoring the chi balance, and homeopathy, which is another type of energy medicine, which is based on law of similars. And then we have our spiritual systems, which is energy medicine. You know, that when we call upon specific forces and energies, it creates an effect.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, so it's important to understand, you know, this concept of energy medicine, that it's a major form of medicine throughout the world, that we use energy and vibration to create effects in the world.
Now, how does that connect to, say, spirituality in terms of your priestess of Obatala, your Mambo and Vodun? How does that connect with that?
Well, I would say it was always connected, or I would like to believe in ancient times that the priests were also the doctors and the psychologists. So it wasn't this separate thing that you're a priest or you're a doctor or you're a psychologist or you're a healer.
Mm.
That at one time in ancient medicine, the priest covered it all. So I see a direct connection. You know, if you're going for healing of the mind, body, and the spirit, that this, you know, hopefully the priest can cover all of those areas.
Right, right, right. So, do you find those two, when you're dealing in the naturopathic community, do you find people dealing in the spiritual as well in that form, or no? Is that kind of unique?
I haven't come across it often. I find that priests, they might study a little bit of herbal medicine. This is my personal experience. I can't speak for the whole community. In the naturopathic community, I haven't come across too many naturopathic practitioners that incorporate spiritual healing into their practice.
Okay.
So to me, ultimately, when you practice holistic medicine, it really is supposed to be about mind, body, and spirit, and bringing it all together. So the practitioner, I think, should be well versed in all realms, in my humble opinion.
I understand that. So, with that being said, um, so when you talked about your background, how did you use those two worlds, if you would, to heal yourself from your own trauma or things that you experienced? How did you do that?
I would say it was a long journey of trial and error for me. Um, you know, I would definitely say I started with homeopathy, yoga, meditation, but I still knew that there was more, you know, that I needed to do. I started delving into African spirituality. I went through several initiations. I'm a priest in 3 different systems. And I still felt that something was missing, you know, that there was more work to do regarding my own personal trauma and healing. So I went on, I studied other modalities such as pranic healing and EFT tapping. And I would say the EFT tapping was really just a major milestone for me in terms of a modality that was extremely helpful in dealing with my own personal trauma and also in me helping others deal with their trauma. So EFT tapping is based on some of the principles of acupuncture. in terms of energy flowing properly through the meridians. And it's with the understanding that emotional trauma is stored in the body and creates a sense of stagnation and energy blockage. And through tapping on certain energy points, as you relive and re-experience, certain memories and traumas, you can actually release those traumas from the body and from the mind. So I would say, it took me a while and working with certain modalities where I felt like a sense of wholeness and a sense of progress in my own personal healing. And then I've done that work with others, and it's been remarkable. I've had people share incredible stories about their own personal healing as we were able to do sessions together.
Mm, mm. So, wow, you just hit on something. So, in talking about that, you said EFT
Yes, EFT tapping,
tapping.
emotional freedom technique.
Wow.
So if anyone's familiar with, I would say the most popular way that a lot of people have been introduced to it, if people have been following Iyanla's show, she makes a lot of references to tapping, EFT tapping. Yeah, yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
so right now in our reality, we've been having a lot of people having a lot of regression, a lot of triggers. That sounds like something that could, because triggers to me, um, it happens when a memory, when something triggers or make you remember something, and then you kind of come back up in your psyche. You don't even realize it's been there for all that time. Maybe because you ain't looked at it, you thought maybe you dealt with it and it's gone. And that happened when I was
Absolutely.
12, and now I'm 40 or whatever. Um, how
Mm-hmm.
does one even tap into that kind of technique or service, if you will?
Well, I do sessions with people, incorporating different modalities such as the EFT tapping, pranic healing, guided meditation, visualization. I do regression therapy because it is important for people to uncover those memories and traumas to deal with them appropriately. Because you're absolutely right. It's there, it's lurking, it's hidden, and, as we go through different daily experiences, those memories can be triggered and we don't fully understand what's happening to us. I see that a lot with people that have panic attacks, for instance, that they're obviously triggered. They're having a full-fledged physical distress response, but they don't, necessarily know why. And when we do, these sessions together, I do it either by video chat or in person. They're able to go back in time and remember the experience and to work through it with specific techniques so they're able to clear it from their systems energetically and emotionally and have peace and healing and balance in their lives.
Wow, that's
Hmm.
that's really impressive. Like that's really really impressive. So right now, for instance, I work with a lot of girls and women, and right now I'm seeing a lot of women defend a lot of behaviors.
Hmm.
What kind of sickness is that, or what kind of, I don't know if you would call it a sickness, but why do we, when you experience trauma, why do you sometimes defend the behavior uh, of of the person who was the perpetrator, if you will, and
Right.
still victimize the person who was the victim? Like, we have this thing called restorative justice we use a lot here. And sometimes I don't think I quite understand what that means, because it always seems like we're having forgiveness for the person who, or making a way for the person who perpetrated it. And then the people who are the
Hmm.
victims kind of, it's like they're having to do a lot of forgiveness on them, but the victim is still holding on to, like they haven't been treated.
Yes,
What
yes.
is that?
Well, I think we're only able to deal with other people's trauma as well as we're able to deal with our own. So most of us have not been taught to deal with trauma well. If we were traumatized, and especially now, this whole conversation about R. Kelly and sexual abusers and predators in the community. For a majority of Black women, I mean, the numbers show a majority of the Black women have been sexually abused at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
So if we went to an adult in our family to express that we were abused and they shamed us and blamed us or minimized or denied our trauma. I think that that's a coping method that we learn and we internalize. And so when we hear of other people being victimized, we use that same method that we were taught. So until we have an opportunity to really deal with our own personal traumas, I think that collectively, that's how we deal with collective trauma, just as like how we've been taught as individuals and how our trauma was handled in our earlier years. That's how we deal with other people's trauma. And I think there's a community collective experience of that, unfortunately, especially as it pertains to Black women.
Right on. Dear
Mhm.
Sister Room says, so many of our people walk around unhealed. What does Ia feel about distance healing?
Okay, I do distance healing with pranic healing. I still find in dealing with people when it comes to trauma, there has to be a mind, body, spirit approach. So I do distance healing, for instance, with pranic healing. You know, I'm trained in advanced pranic healing. However, I still think that for a lot of people, they still need to relive and re-experience the trauma and the memories. They need to tap into the memories and clear it from their system. When we do things like just energy healing by itself, I almost, yeah,
Hold on, y'all. She gonna play.
I think I'd pause.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
okay. I'm concerned about yeah, a spiritual bypass. You know, we do a lot of energetic things or a lot of spiritual practices, abos, meditation, this, that, and the other thing, prayer to deal with trauma. And that's just one part of it. That's the spiritual healing aspect and the energetic healing aspect. But I still think we have to tap into those memories and re experience those traumas to actually be liberated from it. And I think a lot of people either don't know that or it's difficult, you know, like nobody really wants to remember the horrible
Mm-hmm.
things that happen. You know, it's a very scary thing. And it's not something that we're taught to do. We're taught to avoid it at all, you know, at all costs. You know, and there's a lot of cliche sayings that we grow up with. Oh, if it don't kill you, it'll make you stronger. And
Mm.
yeah, I'm too blessed to be stressed, and you know, so on and so forth. So we don't want to relive the
Right on.
things that hurt us. We don't want to remember. We don't. Um, so it's something that we have to, I think, introduce to our communities that it's okay to re-experience those traumas and to work through them so we can be healed. I think that's something that we have to learn about and talk about.
Wow. That was a great question. That was a great because you made a lot of different connections in there. Um, what do you suggest we do when you brought up that now that the time that we're in with this particular energy on the planet? If someone is being triggered, how do you propose that they go about getting some healing?
That's a good question. The healing, I think, is only as good as the healer. So a lot of people have been asking me about that, you know, a lot of referrals to therapists and so on and so forth. And then the feedback that I get about people going to therapists, a lot of therapists, not all, you know, I don't want to say all, they're trained on a cognitive level. So there's a lot of cognitive and intellectual discussion about
Mm-hmm.
trauma. And I think that's the first step, you know, to having a cognitive understanding of how trauma has affected us. But then there's still a deep emotional aspect of the trauma, like to really go deep into the person's psyche and subconscious and to pull up those memories and those feelings and help the person clear that from their system. That I found from feedback that others have shared with me that that's not necessarily happening in their therapy experiences. So, for instance, if someone breaks a leg and they go in and all they do is talk about, oh, my leg is broken, my leg hurts, my leg is broken, it's like, okay, it's good. That's the first step to realize you injured yourself, you have pain, you might have a fracture, so you get a diagnosis. That's the first step. But then what's the treatment?
Mm.
I don't know if discussion about an injury, whether it's emotional or physical, I don't think just a discussion about that is enough. You need the healing.
Mm.
And that's where I think there's a limitation. So to answer the person's question, where do they get that healing? I think they have to look for someone that's trained in doing that deep emotional trauma healing. And I don't know how many people are available to do that.
Is it possible to carry some of this trauma in our DNA?
Absolutely. So I mean, that's very easy to pull up on Google, studies on epigenetics. So a lot of the epigenetic studies are showing that trauma can be traced back to even 14 generations ago. So
Wow.
something that happened 14 generations ago that was traumatic can affect our DNA up till now. Absolutely.
Wow. So how do you treat that?
Well, what's really good about homeopathy, for instance, homeopathy treats what we call family miasms, so family disease patterns that are transmitted from generations ago. And they have actually shown studies on how homeopathy can actually have a positive impact on the DNA. So I found homeopathy can be amazing for treating that intergenerational trauma in the DNA structure.
Mm. So you're saying basically there is a way for us to treat it, but also what about passing it forward?
Well, if we treat it within ourselves, if we actually treat the miasm, the dysfunctional disease pattern that's been passed on to us, as we procreate, we're no longer passing on that defective DNA or that miasm, that disease pattern.
Mm.
So if you get treated before you have children, you're not passing it on. And if you have children, if you get treated yourself and you also have your children treated with homeopathy, that trauma will not be continuously passed on to the next generation.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Chinese medicine. Chinese
Hmm.
medicine. Wow. Every time I think of Chinese medicine, I do think of a lot of herbs and, like a little, you go to a store and they're telling you to take this and this. How did you get into that direction of that path of Chinese medicine?
Well, what I appreciate about Chinese medicine is that it is ancient and it is a standardized system. So it goes back 3,500 years. So they have a long history. I mean, if we look at Western medicine is only maybe a couple of hundred years old. When we look at Chinese medicine, it's thousands of years old, and it's definitely, well, it once was. I'm going to say this: what we practice here in the West is TCM, traditional Chinese medicine. And that was after Chairman Mao came in and took the religious, spiritual aspect out of Chinese medicine. So it's a standardized form of holistic medicine, but I'm definitely concerned that the spiritual aspect was removed as a result of communism. So my understanding is back in the day, they were doing things like incorporating I Ching, divination, feng shui, other energetic modalities into the system. So it was even more holistic and addressed spiritual components of the person's life. So what we practice now in Chinese medicine is, again, TCM, traditional Chinese medicine. So it's dealing with acupuncture or acupressure, the meridians, Chinese herbs, and correcting the qi flow in the meridians, because it's believed that when there's a qi disturbance or an energy flow disturbance, that's what causes disease.
Mm. Their sister asked, for the original Chinese black people make sense? She's drawing from it.
So, was there a question I didn't hear?
Yeah, the question was, were the original Chinese African make sense? She's drawing from it.
I don't know enough about the contributions of the original Chinese Black people. I think they're starting to discover more and more about the, African Chinese. So I really couldn't comment on that, but I'm sure there were major contributions that we don't know about at this point.
Right, right.
Hmm.
So with that, that was a great question. I thought about that myself. Master herbalist. How do you get to be a master herbalist?
Years of study. So, um, just years of training and apprenticing, under many different people. I went to Pacific College of Oriental Medicine for 4 years, where they have an herbal program there. I've apprenticed with many other people in herbal practice, herbal studies. And so I incorporate that into my practice as well.
Okay.
Hmm.
And then I know that you are a certified life coach specializing in transformational soul coaching. Now, there's a lot of people, this life coaching thing, everybody and their mama feel like, I'm a life coach, I'm a life coach, I'm a life coach.
Right.
What really makes a life coach? And why are they needed?
Well, Um, that's a good question because you're right. Everyone's saying that they're a life coach. I'm a big proponent of going to school, getting certified, going through a training. I think that that's really important. Even just to backtrack a little, even with the herbal medicine, it's important to go to school, undergo formal study, because I see a lot of freestyling out in the community. Anybody can put up a title and put up a shingle and start practicing. And I've seen a lot of damage that's been done in the community.
Mm,
I've had patients that have come to me after they've gone to other practitioners and they've been injured by other practitioners. So I think we have to really undergo the training, the certification, before we actually put up a shingle and are considered as authentic coaches. So there's different types of life coaches, and people specialize in different things. I specialize in soul coaching. People can do life coaching, they can specialize in, let's say, helping people get through divorces or helping people to go through the grief process, whatever they choose to specialize in. My specialization is soul coaching, which is helping people to realize their fullest potential, their destiny, and to tap into the highest aspect of their soul. Because I believe within all of us, we know the answers to our questions, we know the solutions to our problems, we know what we came here to do, but a lot of us are blocked from tapping into the highest part of our consciousness. We've had traumas, we have stress, we have daily distractions that keep us from connecting to that part of us, and we lose track. We no longer can tune into our intuition that will guide
mm.
us on this journey of life. So that's what I specialize in. I do sessions with people so they can tap into that part of their being that knows how to heal themselves, that knows the right way for them. Because I can't say, I'm not an authority on anyone else's life. I can be a facilitator to help them tap into the part of them that's the authority on their life. What works for me may not work for the next person.
I know.
So for me as a life coach, I've combined my experience as a priestess. This year will be 16 years as a priestess of Obatala.
Wow.
I'm also a certified yoga and meditation instructor. I've been one for about 25 years. So I incorporate different modalities into the coaching sessions to help people access that part of them that knows what is best for them. And that's what I specialize in. I can't talk about what other people do for their life coaching and what
Right.
their expertise is. But I would say, just to answer the question, people should look to make sure people are actually certified because anybody can say anything.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. I'm a life coach,
Right.
So I'm like, oh, okay. Soul transformation. First of all, what is the soul?
The soul, I believe, is the aspect of the divine that it's almost like if we look at the ocean and it's one drop, we each have a drop of the ocean of consciousness and the divine within us. And that's how I see the soul, the consciousness of the divine. We all have that. a drop of it within us. And that part of us is the highest aspect of us: consciousness, wisdom, inner peace. We all have that within us. We all have the aspect of the divine within us. It's just, can we tap into it?
Mm,
So
okay.
soul is consciousness, divine
Right on. Right on.
consciousness.
Right on. So,
Mhm.
and transforming that, how do you transform something like that?
I would say, hold on, I'm getting
Okay.
I'm
No
getting
worries. I'm sorry.
calls
I'll
left
figure
and
it
right.
out later.
How do we transform? Well, I would say that it's a transformation of consciousness, because I think for a lot of us, we're in our everyday consciousness mode. So we're in the everyday way of thinking, distraction, stress, rushing around, working too hard. So it's transforming from that state of consciousness into our higher selves.
Mm,
Learning modalities to reach that part of ourselves, our divine consciousness that knows the answers to all of our problems and questions. That's the transformation. What do we do to consistently tap into that part of ourselves?
right on. Sister, another sister asked, can you ask Ia about processed food blocking our true health consciousness? Big issue in our community.
Yes. So the body is the temple for the soul. So we talk, if we talk about the soul, what you just asked me, divine consciousness.
Mhm.
So our body is the vehicle for divine consciousness. And certainly if we are polluting our temples and our bodies, that can definitely be something that hinders us from connecting with.
Hold on, family. Okay, family, hold on. That was a really good question. Very good question. Very good information that we get this morning. Peace, Christy. Uh, the sister is like right on the money. And we're gonna find out what's going on with her in a minute. If you're joining us, we are talking to Ia Darmone Holland. She is a priestess of Abatala and a practitioner of holistic medicine. If something's happened with her phone, she'll tap right back in. She's also she's a she's a naturopathic practitioner of holistic medicine, Chinese medicine, and a master herbalist practitioner. She's also a certified life coach specializing in transformative soul coaching. So this sister here is like, she like almost like, the full package. She's looking at medicine as well as spirituality and where the two of them meet. And I think that that's really important because normally we usually have one without the other, or maybe dripples of some in others. But it's nice to hear from someone who's been studied all of it. Where does she live? That'll be next when she signed back in. We'll ask her that because I don't know what happened, but I know she'll definitely be back in. I'm just gonna double check. It's a great conversation. This sister is full of so much wisdom and knowledge, man. I'm blown away myself sitting here. And so we're going to add her back in, y'all. She's coming back in. So her the Fern family, her the Fern, she's coming back. She's coming back in here. So, yeah. Uh-oh, let's see what's going on. It's taking a little longer to add. Let's see. The last question we were asking her was about processed food because she talked about the soul. And that was a great question. Our dear sister Queen in the desert of Vegas asked about processed food and how does that feed your soul and your body and your spirit and your mind and the whole nine. So that's definitely the question we left off on with this dear sister. And so we're gonna try to get her back in here. So let's see what happens here. Here we go. Boop. Okay, so something's happening with her camera. Okay, let me send her a message, y'all. Hold the phone and send her sister a message. One of the things I'm really loving about this conversation is how calm she is in answering the questions, which is great for me because I'm always going like da. Okay, let me spit. Hold on, family. Okay, I'm trying to have to try again, and then we'll figure out what's going on. Thank you, dear Sister Keisha. That's on here. I'm still trying to get my work in here. Let me make this big so I can see what I need to see with some of these questions. Because anybody that knows me, I'm down at the bottom inviting people. Very happy to know her. Yeah, right on. Okay, here we try it again. Bam. Here we go. Let's try it again, fam. Get this knowledgeable sister back up in here. And it says adding. Let's see. You may need to touch your rotate button. Okay, hold on, y'all. Button again. All right, family. All right, let's see what we can do to get her back up in here. This sister is so knowledgeable. Like, I'm learning a lot. I'm over here taking notes, but then I'm over here. And if you're just joining us, we are talking with Ia, their sister Darmone Holland. She is a priestess of Obatala. She's a Mambo and Voodoo, as well as a naturopathic practitioner of holistic medicine, Chinese medicine, and a master herbal practitioner. Also a certified life coach, specializing in transformative soul coaching. And we're going to get her back up in here. I don't know what happened in terms of, the phone or whatever, but we're going to get her back up in here. We got a few more questions for her on this traditional Tuesday version of Ways to the Path, where we talk with people who are on the path in their journey of spirituality and reclaiming oneself. And this morning, we are mixing spirituality and medicine, and how I love when she said that she, back in the day, she would like to, in a thought, that when you went to your a priest, the priest also, did medicine, because we talk about spiritual medicine, but we know there has to be physical medicine as well. And I'm liking it like you can feed your mind, but you got to feed your body too. I liken it to spirituality and the physical. So it's the spirit world, it's the physical world, and both has to be treated. Like, it's like a balance there. And this morning, as the sister talked, I can definitely, it just totally makes sense to me. Totally makes sense to me. Yeah. So let's see what's going on with her. Great questions in the room, dear sister. I love the questions that you're asking. Let me let her know we're still waiting. So she know that we're still here, and I didn't end the show or nothing like that. Great information with the explanation of the soul. What would she say the difference between soul and spirit? Right on. When she come back on, Ia Colette, and good morning to you, I would definitely ask her that. Because when she was talking, for me, when people talk, I have to, in my mind, because I'm a visualist, it has to be a picture, for me. And then all the common sense kind of gets linked. But it just totally makes sense, her doing the medicine part. Because normally, it's funny, at least for me, when you try to get your mind right, when you're dealing with things that are mentally going on with you, you seek spiritual counseling, whatever. But then after you start doing work up here, but you ain't did work on the physical, then it comes around, and then you have to address that, because your mind can't be healthy, and then your body isn't. And that's why that absolutely made sense to me when she said that. Like, I totally got it. Let me let her know I'm not logged. I'm be back in. Yes. Okay, here we go. Already a guest on the broadcast. Okay, so I'm gonna tell her this. Sign out and refresh. Okay, so I'm telling her to sign out and refresh. And then it'll bring her back in. We're gonna finish this up. Here we go. I think she's trying it again. Here we go. Okay, this is saying adding. Connection failed. Okay, so now they're saying connection failed. Let me try to add you, sis. Let me see if I can add you. Okay, I'm trying it again, sis. Trying it again. All right. This is saying, so it's saying like you're already a guest in the broadcast, and that's why I said you should just close out and then come back in again, because it's like it's saying that you are already on, which we know you're not on because we're trying to add you on. So, which makes me think that when you got kicked off, you know, maybe it's still thinking that you're on. And sometimes when you sign out of stuff, then it can allow you to come back in. You know, that's just all I can think of at this time. Um, yeah. Uh, close out and hold on. Boop. Close out and come back in. All right, family. I'm gonna get these last questions in here. Such great information. I think also the other part of having this sister and looking at the physical and the spiritual, even in this great time of the things that are happening on the earth where women are kind of standing up for themselves and to other women and men in society, you got to figure out how to take care of yourself spiritually and physically, because if you don't do that, then both will break down, and then you really wouldn't be really a help to yourself or anyone else. So I think this conversation is really, really timely. I think it's really. There you go, sis.
Okay,
All right,
yay.
you're back. So we stopped at the processed foods,
hmm
and her question is like, how does that play into it? We had a couple more questions in here, but basically hers was processed foods, processed food. Yeah. Oh yeah, she said, can you ask Ia about processed food blocking our true health consciousness?
Yeah, so I think that's basically what I said previously, that our body is the temple for the soul. And so if we're polluting the temple with processed foods, definitely it's going to limit our access to our divine consciousness.
Right on. Next question says, should we be observing the habits and lifestyles of healers prior to utilizing them without judgment?
I'm not clear about that
Okay.
question.
Yeah, yeah. This is quite interesting because she says, should we be observing, should we be observing, here's what I said, the habits and lifestyles of healers prior to utilizing them without judgment? Um, you know what I thought of when I heard this part? It's kind of like
Sure.
with R. Kelly, when people are trying to separate his music from his behaviors.
Got it.
That's what
Right.
I immediately thought of. That's like when you
Right.
Reverend Ike or something.
Right.
Like,
Right.
should that that's kind of hard because I know some people who are
Yeah.
wonderful hairdressers, though their hair is not. But they
Right.
could do your
Well,
hair, boy.
I would definitely say for healers that we want to walk the walk as best as we can. That there should be a high level of consistency with what we're sharing with others and how we live our lives. Perfection, however, is another story. So
Mm.
I would say consistency, consistency with our values and the values that we share with others is very important. And I think, yes, people should definitely observe the healer and get to know them if they want to utilize.
They want to utilize them. Got you.
hmm
So she asked, where do you live?
I live in New Jersey. However, I'm available by video chat for sure. I do. As a matter of fact, I was actually surprised because I'm not the most technologically savvy person.
You're doing great.
So, but I've been doing a lot of video chat consultations and it's been going quite well. So it makes it so I can reach a lot of people that live out of state.
What part of Jersey are you in? I just came from Jersey.
Oh, okay, Maplewood.
Maplewood. Okay, that's north of Jersey. That's the north.
Yeah, North
I
Jersey.
lived in Newark for a hot minute, but
Okay, yeah, it's close to Newark.
Yeah, right on,
Mm-hmm.
right on.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Sister Keisha Gray Anderson said that Ia Damone uh, is fantastic, very knowledgeable, and also compassionate. Happy to know her.
Oh, thank you, Keisha.
Uh,
Thank you, thank you.
Ia Colette says, with Ia explanation of the soul, what would she say is the difference between the soul and spirit?
I think there's different schools of thought on that. Some people would say there's no difference. I would say, from a Chinese medicine point of view, that there's a spirit that lives in each organ. So Chinese medicine recognizes that different emotions reside in the organs, like the liver. When it's out of balance, it can represent the spirit of anger. That the heart, when it's out of balance, can uh, represent joy to an extreme. Lungs can represent grief and anxiety, and on and on and on. So each organ has a particular spirit or energy or consciousness that resides within it. And some people can refer to that as spirit. Like, we have different spirits within us, different types of consciousness that reside in our chakras, or in our organs. So if there were to be a distinction made between the soul and the spirit, then that would be my training and explanation of a different type of consciousness that resides either in the chakras or in the organs.
Okay,
Or,
so
or
you
more, not different, let me not say different,
okay.
a differentiated consciousness, because we have divine soul consciousness, which is grand and vast, but it becomes denser and more differentiated in different ways. So the chakras can represent a differentiated aspect of the one divine soul consciousness, and that could be referred to as a spirit, because it's a differentiated consciousness. And then in Chinese medicine, they would recognize that differentiated consciousness into the different organs. So I don't know if that's helpful to whoever asked the
You
question.
know, what is voodoo? Like, what system is voodoo? People hear that, we get so much
Yeah.
misinformation thanks to Hollywood and all kind of other stuff.
Thanks to Hollywood. And well, I would say voodoo is amazing because it is the ultimate diaspora Pan-African spiritual system. So what was done in Haiti was that they recognized the need to bring all the nations together and all of the divinities from the different African nations so that they could overcome slavery and oppression. So in
Mm,
voodoo, you have the divinities that come from Benin, or formerly known as Dahomey.
mhm.
You have the divinities as the Nago nation, which are the Orisha, Yoruba deities. You have the Congo spirits. So they bring in the different spirits and divinities of the people that were living there. And it's recognized as one Pan-African system where all of these divinities from these different systems are recognized. So when you do a voodoo ceremony, it goes on for days, because by the time you honor all of the divinities of the different nations, it takes days. So I really appreciate that particular system. It's definitely not what we see in Hollywood. It was it was stigmatized,
Right.
because if we study the history of the Haitian Revolution, that it was actually started by a voodoo ceremony. That's what kicked off, the Haitian
Mm,
Revolution. So some people will say a sacrifice was made to Ogun, with its or Ogun, and some people will say a sacrifice was made to Erzuli Danto to start the Haitian Revolution. But it all began with a voodoo ceremony to empower the people. And I think that's why it's stigmatized. So it's an African healing spiritual system, it's a religion that's been given a bad name because of how it started the Haitian Revolution and empowered the Haitian people.
wow, wow. If you're just joining us, we are talking to Ia Damone Holland. She's a priestess of Obatala in the Mambon Voodoo, as well as a naturopathic practitioner of holistic medicine and Chinese medicine, and a master herbal practitioner. She's also a certified life coach specializing in transformational soul coaching. So you just explained to us voodoo, because I think it gets so much of a bad rap. Um, is there a connection in there between with voodoo and say your medicine, like that herbal piece, like you mentioned yours, at least sometimes they have different deities that's connected to medicine and to iron and to, is that the same way in voodoo as well?
I would say the ancient practices of most of the African spiritual systems that we know of here all should have a strong herbal medicine component. So as a result of slavery, colonialization, the breakdown of our systems, we may have lost some of it. But I'm thinking originally in its more ancient forms, herbal medicine should have been a huge part of the practice.
Mm, right on.
Mhm.
A dear sister said, do you train? Does she train? Do you train?
Do I train others? I'm open to it. I'm
Okay.
open to training others. Yes. So I'm an Iya Larisha, crowned Obatala. I have godchildren. If people want to come and study and it's a match, it's a good relationship, on both sides, then, people can mentor that way. And if people are interested in studying holistic medicine, I'm open to mentorship.
Do you work a lot? Do you work any with young people, like say folks under 25?
I work with all different ages. So I have my own practice, and then I also work with a holistic medical doctor. So I see patients there as well. And I see infants on up through centenarians. I work with all ages.
Right on, right on.
Hmm.
Um, how do you, with your spiritual practice, how do you collaborate with other people in that tradition at all to do any kind of work together?
Yeah, I mean, any kind of, I would say, diaspora African tradition is communal. There's no practice without community.
Right on.
Everyone has their part. We need community in order to perform these rituals. It's communal, it's family oriented, so absolutely.
What's the
I
purpose?
practice with others. I have godparents, I have mentors, I have other people in the community that I work very closely with, for sure.
What is the purpose of rituals?
The purpose of rituals, it depends. There are specific rituals for specific things. It's symbolic, it's moving energy in a specific direction. So you're using tools, you're using objects, you're using plants, substances, minerals, all different sorts of items in order to move energy in a specific direction. And also, I think the soul speaks symbolically. The divinity speaks symbolically. So it's using the language of energy and symbolism to affect change in the universe.
Right on. What about ceremonies?
What type is this a person that, or just in general
Yeah, well,
ceremonies?
people have ceremonies. Like, usually, what is the purpose of a ceremony? Is it like, get
Ceremony versus ritual?
yeah.
Okay, well, it depends. We have wedding ceremonies, for instance, rites of passage ceremonies. So there's ceremonies that can recognize different milestones in life that we achieve. There could be ceremonies of fertility. There could be ceremonies that recognize changes in seasons. So I wonder if people are looking at ceremony as being maybe a little bit more festive, maybe a little bit more secular, and ritual being more spiritual and religious. I don't know if that would be
No, no, that makes
what
sense.
people would, yeah. Hmm.
So what?
So ceremony could be just more like marking events and milestones.
Right on. What about?
Mhm.
Do you do any womb healing work?
Absolutely. Absolutely, lots of womb healing work. But I believe I do some group work. I didn't even explain this. A big part of what I did, I danced professionally for 25 years.
Oh wow.
So I have an extensive background in dance, and I do sacred womb healing dance and workshops. And I also think that a lot of people need individual work because, if someone's having some type of dysfunction or disease with the womb, it's important to investigate what's going on with each individual. So I do group work and I also do individual work for sure. And if I work with individuals, I come up with something that's specifically designed for that individual, because I don't believe in a one size fits all process.
Right on, right on.
Mhm.
Okay, so we talked about the word. Do you think it's possible for us to heal as a community, with the victim and the perp, especially because sometimes it gets really hard to have that conversation within Black communities and Black spaces, because a lot of people who have been violated have it's happened in Black space. It isn't like, we on a plantation and a white man coming for you, something like that. Like, we throw that narrative out there and just, like, y'all, come on, this is something that happened in our own spaces as Black folks. Is it possible to have healing in our community when the person is your brother and your sister, and or
So healing regarding sexual trauma and abuse,
yeah,
yeah, that's a big one to tackle, but it's absolutely necessary. So I don't know the statistics with Black men. I think there needs to be discussion and research around that. But the research that we have with Black women is showing that a majority of Black women, at least 60% by the age of 18, have been raped or sexually molested. So if you have half of your population, which is Black women, and more than half of that that's been sexually violated, I do not know why that's not like a community state of emergency.
right on.
It's epidemic, it's pandemic, and I think that we absolutely have to start dealing with sexual trauma, but also I don't think we're looking at the other side of it. If so many women, Black women, are being sexually violated and abused, then what does that say? And most of the time, according to statistics, I think statistics are showing well over 95% of the time that's at the hands of Black men. So what is that saying about the numbers of Black men that are perpetrators? So we have to have a dialogue on both sides, like how do we heal the survivors and victims, but then also how do we deal with the perpetrators? And we're not necessarily talking about that because then that means we have to look at the large number of perpetrators that are walking around amongst us. That I
Mm-hmm.
think we're really afraid to deal with that and those numbers.
Real talk, real talk.
Yeah.
That really came. Yeah, that's something that because the other part in there is how we protect people, because maybe they're our sons, or maybe we believe in Black nationalism, and maybe the goal is to get free, but you know what I mean? It's like a false sense of being free, especially if you have those
Yeah.
amongst you that have been violated and like, ugh, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Black women are definitely in a very difficult spot because we're basically put in position to choose our loyalty. Do we
Mm,
have more loyalty to being Black women, or do we have more race loyalty to Black men, which means putting aside issues of sexual abuse and trauma, misogyny, patriarchy? So we're put in a position to choose our loyalties, which is not, I don't think that that's the right position to be in. How can we be free as a people if all of us aren't free? If a majority of your population, which is Black women, is being oppressed, how can we be moving in the direction of liberation? We have to look at the oppression that takes place in our own community. And as Black women, we should not have to choose our loyalty.
now, you just said something there. So when you were talking like that, I think of so many Black women who go to religious spaces, because I think there's a difference between religion and spirituality. I think there's some overlap, but I definitely think there's a difference between spirituality and religion. So a lot of us go to religious institutions, and we're taught inside of our spiritual practice, um, uh, that protection piece, that judgment piece immediately pops up, because that's something that we learn in a place that is supposed to mold us spiritually. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
How do we overcome that?
Well, what religion are
I'm
you
just saying
thinking
in
about?
general. I
Any
don't, if
religion?
you're a Muslim, if you're a
Okay.
Christian, if you're an African spiritualist, because I've been in places in African spirituality where a man can only do stuff, and I'm like, how is that possible when you came through me?
Yes. So we have to address the issues of patriarchy and the oppression of women in all of our religions. You know, my understanding, my teaching, my training, my viewpoint is that feminine ashe, feminine power, is absolutely needed to make anything work in African spirituality. That, you know, female power is something to be revered and respected, and if anyone is diminishing that or abusing female power, it has no place in African spirituality. It's against the teachings of African spirituality. So you can't be an African, in my humble opinion, an African spiritual practitioner and diminish the ashe of divine feminine power. We need male ashe, we need female ashe,
Right on.
and if we diminish one or put one above the other, you know, our practices are all about balance and alignment. You know, we do rituals for alignment. We do divination to see what is in balance and what is out of balance. So if we're promoting teachings in spiritual spaces which relegate the female ashe to something lower and less, that is something that's out of balance and out of alignment, and it has no place in our spiritual. It's against what we do.
Right on. So who heals the healer in those circles?
Who heals the healer? That's a really good question. I've been fortunate, you know, I have some friends, we work with each other to help heal each other, because we definitely have to create a support system of healing, because, you know, if you're always filling other people's cups and your cup isn't filled, eventually you'll be depleted and no good to anyone else. So, you know, I'm fortunate. I do have a healing support team, and we work together. I could develop it more. I can definitely build my team, but it's something we have to look at. How, as healers, how do we fill our cups?
Right on.
Mm-hmm.
Also, too, when you're a healer, is it okay to feel like you're still working on your own stuff? So I think sometimes we see someone like a minister or a healer or a priest, like their stuff is perfect, and it's like, y'all, you know. Oh, hold on, y'all, she's frozen. Oh, just as it was getting good. Let's see. Oh man. Okay, y'all, hold on, because it got some good questions up in here. Good questions up in here, right? We can't choose because we raised son. Oh, great. Okay, so we gonna get her to sign right back in, y'all, because I want her to answer that question, because this was getting good. Because I think as we deal with some of this stuff, that it really does. We got to ask those hard questions and have those hard conversations, particularly in our community, because it don't mean we don't love our brothers or don't love our women, but I do think there has to be some real conversation around how do we, get some healing in here. And then for the people that's administering the healing, how do they get the healing that they need? Because I think for some of us, we get called to this work because of our own stuff. Okay, we're trying this again, y'all. Hold on, let's see what's going on. Uh-oh. That didn't even let me. Oh, yeah, it did. Boop. Did I miss? Nope. Hold on, y'all. My little fingers up in here. I gotta find my little pen. There we go. Boop. Okay. Hold on, family. Okay.
Yeah,
All right, good.
quicker this
I
time. I'm
know,
getting
right?
better with this.
That's all right. That's all right. So listen, a dear sister here said, we can't choose because we're raising sons. We have to get the root of what creates the perpetrator's mentality and sexual deviance, as well as protect the feminine principle. So she said something here that was interesting. She basically said that you can't choose because you have sons. I don't know if I don't have any children. If I had a son that was a predator, I don't know if I say I can't go against him, because I don't know. I mean, I think for some women that may be their truth. You know what I mean? And then she said go to the root cause, what caused him to do that. But I don't know.
It's I would say that the conversation about the sexual perpetrators amongst us and sexual abuse, that warrants its own separate, Facebook Live It warrants lots of conversations, research. There's so much work that needs to be done. So what I would have to say that it's pandemic in our communities. It should be a national community state of
I
emergency.
agree.
That we should have everyone involved in the conversation and in the healing process, what to do with the perpetrators, what to do with the victims and the survivors. We haven't even begun to scratch the surface,
Right on.
and I'm glad that it's starting to be exposed. Conversations about misogyny, patriarchy, sexual abuse. I'm seeing so much more dialogue taking place on social media, and I'm very grateful. And we need to do a lot more, but we need to bump this up to a state of emergency.
Right on.
You know, it needs to be seen on that level, you know, and not just kind of random conversations on social media. It needs to be addressed as a state of emergency, in my humble opinion.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree with that. But it just seems like it's just so hard to have that conversation because then it goes into behavior. You know, it's like we go all the way to the act of what's happened, but it's also this behavior and this environment that's been created, and then people get questioned on it. And then it's kind of like when we dismiss it, like, you know, a woman's body, you know, like, oh, we got to fight white supremacy. We can't be worried about that. And it's like, what do you
Again,
mean by that?
Black women have been put in that unique place of choosing loyalty. Either we fight white supremacy or we fight male oppression. You know, so it's knowing that if we are truly fighting for the liberation of people of African heritage, that we have to deal with oppression in all forms.
Right.
And that includes the oppression of African heritage women.
That's really, sis, you are like such a wealth of knowledge. I'm sitting here
Thank
like,
you.
okay, Lon, I'm supposed to be on my job doing all this other stuff, and I'm like, then I get caught up like this. A dear sister would say, oh no, she didn't mean to say protect the predator. She meant as healers, we need to address the consciousness of the abuser in our community. And I get that. I just get sometimes.
We absolutely need to. As I said, that warrants a whole conversation unto itself. We haven't even begun to scratch the surface of that national state of emergency that we have going on in our communities. We haven't, you know, I'm grateful to the Me Too movement, but we haven't begun to scratch the surface, and we need to. And we have a lot of predators that are amongst us, and we have to look at what is creating a community of predators. Because if we have millions of Black women that are being raped and sexually abused, it's not just 5 or 10 men doing that. It's not just 100. It's not just 500. It's not just 1,000. So we're talking about thousands. Could we be talking about millions of men that are perpetrating that type of behavior? And people, you know, that we have to really look at the numbers, which I think people are scared to do.
Right on.
And then we have to, as I said, we haven't even begun to scratch the surface on that.
Sister Satu says, I wonder, are there any rituals we can do to stop our community with this pandemic? It seems like an illness, almost like cancer, that has been passed on. So she talked about, is there any kind of ritual or anything we could do to deal with some of that?
Well, I would say that my approach is always holistic.
Okay.
So rituals start to bring about spiritual changes, spiritual energies to address the problem. But then we also have to look at what can we do on the emotional and mental levels, you know, that creates this behavior. And if there's anything going on physically, you know, what's going on in the physical body that creates this imbalance. So if we look at rituals, I would say that's one aspect of the healing. A lot of people in the Orisha tradition, some of the go-to divinities that deal with the violation of women would be the Iyami, for instance, the ancestral mothers, the primordial mothers. women, from what I'm seeing, are learning more about the EIME and how to tap into that energy force. And a lot of the female divinities also deal with correcting this imbalance of male energy and its oppressiveness towards female energy. So, women are doing rituals, let's say to Oshun or Ya. Many of the female divinities would take this on. But the important thing is what I'm seeing, this brings up a whole nother conversation. I'm seeing a lot of freestyling, spiritual freestyling out there in the community. Uh, this is done through divination. Our systems work through divination. So there's many possible rituals, there's many possible divinities that we can go to, but it's determined through divination. We have to do divination to determine, are there any divinities that will help us to overcome the oppression of women? And if so, what are the rituals? Who should be doing the rituals? So on and so forth. So in other words, I don't want my words to be used as, oh, everyone just go out and start freestyling and start doing rituals to the EIME and start doing rituals to Oshun. It needs to be determined through divination.
Right.
From a qualified priest. Let me put that all together.
Right on, right on. I'm glad you clarified that, because sometimes it also feels like in culture that people make it seem like all the work is on the woman. Like if something happens to the woman, it's like she has to figure out how to care for herself, how to care for the person that did whatever. There's always this thing that it keeps coming back to the woman. Is that the way our society is just set up, where I have to think of everything and men don't have to think of anything? But just,
no,
it kind of feels
I
like
would
that
say
sometimes.
it definitely does feel like that. So for the men that may feel that they benefit from patriarchy, I don't know what would motivate them to participate in community work to overcome patriarchy. I would say it's mostly us as women that feel, the detrimental effects of patriarchy. So we would be the ones most inspired and motivated to do work against that. But I would definitely say we welcome the men that are very aware of toxic masculinity, patriarchy, misogyny, to get involved in creating balance. Because when there's imbalance in energy, it affects all of us. Whether or not we're aware of it, it affects all of us.
Right
Yeah.
on. Right on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right on.
Absolutely. Mm.
Yeah, you're incredible. I mean, I could just talk to
Oh,
you all
thank
day,
you.
because you know what? You bring such a balance, and you talk. Sometimes it just feels like when we're having these conversations, um, we do this thing where it's an assumption that as a woman in particular, that you're supposed to take whatever's happening. Like I interviewed lots of women who were in the Panther Party, lots of women who were in the Nation in the First
Yes.
Resurrection, and in Black liberation movements. And it was always this thing where you had to just take it. But at the same time, when something would happen to a man, it's like we have to feel his pain, or how would this make him feel, or we have to protect him at all costs, even if it meant your own life. And I think
Yes.
sometimes that's where this balance happens, when you start to see Black women getting a little bit of healing energy, and I hate to say it like that, from places that we say that we're not supposed to be in, or why how we end up hugging trees, and people are like, that's weird, that's white people stuff, but you don't even know the energy that this person is getting from hugging a tree. Like, you know what I mean? Like the peace and calmness that you get in that moment, that you don't have to always
Yeah.
be responsible for other people. And I think we have a hard time at looking at, what does the term strange bedfellows mean? Like, how do we
Yes.
get to strange bedfellows when you're in your own community and you can't even have those real conversations, because it gets heated, because we may see our own contribution to, male domination, or, like how we contributed as women, because we don't
Oh,
want
yes.
to,
We have to look at, yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean?
As Black women, we have to look at our own internalized oppression. It's huge. I recently saw on Facebook that R. Kelly had a concert in Chicago
Mm-hmm.
a few days ago, and there were African heritage women in full attendance at his concert, and they were even chanting. I don't know if this is true. I heard this, it's hearsay, that they were even chanting, "Take me hostage." So that speaks volumes about internalized oppression. And that is definitely something that we as women of African heritage have to start looking at, our own internalized oppression, because this is something that's been passed from generation to generation. You know, our mothers, our grandmothers, you know, taught us different ways of dealing with oppression, misogyny, patriarchy, and we continue to pass that on. And we need to learn about it, and we need to overcome our own internalized oppression. And one of my favorite sayings, you know, my favorite author, one of my favorite authors is actually Zora Neale Hurston.
Mm.
So her term, Black women are the mules of the earth.
Ooh.
It still rings true today, that we are the mules of we carry the burdens, and we've been trained to carry the burdens.
So how do you suggest that we untrain ourselves? How do we get out of this thing?
How do we get out of this thing? It starts with conversations like this, because as two women wake up and have these conversations and start to explore internalized oppression and misogyny, like how we're doing it, and we're doing a Facebook Live, other women will start to talk about it. It starts with a shift in consciousness. It starts with conversations. It starts with rituals. It starts with healing. So I think the more we start doing this, the process begins. Can we do something formal? Can we organize something? Absolutely. You know, we can absolutely organize something to help women overcome, you know, the oppression of women, especially as African heritage women. How do we overcome our oppression? We definitely can organize around that.
Right on, right on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
In our closing, can you give us some words of wisdom that maybe can help us on the journey wherever we are?
Some words of wisdom. I would say one of the things that I've seen the most in our community is we've normalized trauma. You know, we've normalized violence. Things that should not be normal, should not be accepted. We've normalized abuse. And I think that we as a people need to start looking at intergenerational trauma, violence, and abuse, and how to heal within ourselves, you know, to find that healing again within ourselves. And as we heal, to start spreading and sharing the consciousness of healing. Because that's one of the biggest things, you know, in the past, I've been working with a holistic doctor, as I said, and I have my own practice. Past 5 years, I've seen at least 2,000 patients. And that's one of the biggest issues that I see, you know, not to mention people coming for spiritual guidance. And when I really get a chance to sit and speak with people, they have unaddressed traumas, unaddressed abuse. And they walk around with that and normalize it and think that that's just something that's supposed to happen. And meanwhile, they're breaking down mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. So that would be my words of wisdom, to seek healing, not to normalize it, not to minimize it, not to trivialize it. You're not weak if you say that you're having problems or you're having a hard time, you know, to seek the healing that you need. So that's what I would probably part with. And I can give out my email address if anyone wants to contact me. It's darmoneh@gmail.com. So it's D as in diva, A-R, M as in Mary, O, N as in Nancy, E, @gmail.com. And people, they can call, I mean, people can call me too, 917-723-5431.
So that now 917, I put your email up there, I put your Facebook page up there, 917
723-5431. You know, if people want more information on healing. And as I said, I'm available through video chat. I'm able to work with a lot of people that live at a distance through video chat. So absolutely.
Well, Ed, thank you so much. I'll be talking with you again soon. I'll be back on the East Coast at the end of this month because my father.
Okay.
So I'm gonna figure out how to get up to North. I'm flying on, I think, on a Wednesday, and the service is not till Friday. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to get, because I'm gonna be in South Jersey, But I'm gonna figure out how to,
Okay.
because you live in Newark, so I'm gonna figure out how to get up to North Jersey at least to see you.
Oh, we can definitely link up. I would look forward to it.
Yay!
Absolutely.
All right.
Yay!
Thank you for correcting that, Sandy
Thank
Lewis. I forgot that H. Right on it. I love when people be on it. All right. Take care. Peace here.
Thank you so much. And I'm so honored that you invited me as your guest. I thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Thank you. Okay. Peace, family.
Okay.